it, everybody. Welcome to Season 3 of Exponential Africa Live, a live show that focuses on bringing the best thought leadership, technology and innovation to the African continent and the world. We are so excited to kick off a new season of shows in 2021 with a deeper focus on exponential technologies that are radically changing our world and looking at where will humanity go by embracing these fascinating new technologies and what are the implications and ethics behind these new tools in our toolbox. We're going to see so many new advances in our lifetime, it's hard to keep up. And our goal is to help you keep up and prosper. My belief is that people who are able to harness the power of exponential technologies will be the leaders of the future. And it all starts with having a growth, abundant mindset. We are so grateful to all of you watching. Thanks for your feedback, emails, and comments on how the show is helping you on your own learning journey. In South Africa, we've moved into level 1 lockdown, and this crushing fear of the pandemic has finally subsided a little, and it's really nice to know that normality is on the horizon. But even if we go back to level 5, our mission as SingularityU South Africa and Man is to help future-proof Africa by building a global community of change makers who can help solve some of Africa's and the world's greatest challenges. We do this through various educational experiences that educate, empower, and inspire, and by building our community and network. We recently completed the SingularityU South Africa Executive Program Online 2021 with over 40 delegates in a 3.5-day learning experience. This program focuses on becoming a leader of the future with interactive learning, deep dives, and tech immersions. It's an incredible experience. Through lifelong learning, leaders can really make better decisions. So apply today for the next online EP in April. The SUSA Summit Hybrid event will take place on the 13th and 14th of October for the 5th time, and you'll have full access to the online platform for 4 days from the 12th to the 15th of October to make sure that we allow for networking time and deal making. Every show, we're going to be giving away 3 online tickets to the SUSA Summit Online 2021. So make sure to register to be eligible and stay tuned. Okay, so tonight for the launch of Season 3, we're going to be kicking off on the future of Bitcoin and crypto. Will 2021 be the year of mass global adoption in the crypto and Bitcoin space? Already we are seeing large organizations like Tesla, Square, and BNP Melon, as well as more institutional investors get involved, and many more to follow. This space is on fire with daily news of new business models and applications of value being created. And in just a few short years, the blockchain ecosystem has evolved and grown exponentially with amazing new startups and companies around closed, public, hyperledgers, DeFi, price predictions, automated protocols and aggregators, and even NFTs, non-fungible tokens, or NFTs as I like to say. Non-fungible tokens will redefine how value is created and stored and will completely shift business models. We've already seen Beeple sell for $69 million at the Christie's art sale recently, and Digital Land selling for $1.5 million in a game called Axie Infinity using NFT technology. This is truly revolutionary and big business, and it's only just begun. So on the show tonight to discuss all of this, we have Tanya Knowles, SUSA faculty on blockchain and business manager at Adhara.io, Henri Arslanian, PwC crypto leader and a major expert in the space, and Farzam Ehsani, co-founder and CEO of Valr, of the crypto exchange. A very special thanks to our sponsor partners who this would not be possible without, our global partner Deloitte and our strategic partner MTN. Thank you for your commitment, and we look forward to making a positive impact in South Africa and Africa with you in 2021. Lastly, if you want to keep learning about exponential technologies and thought leadership, make sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube page, click the bell to get notified when we go live, and register on the website to get more info and be eligible for the SUSA Summit Ultra Experience ticket giveaways valued at 10,000 Rand. Let's get started with our African Innovation Spotlight. Today's African Innovation Spotlight highlights a South African company that is climbing in spite of all the challenges of COVID-19 and the effects on the world economy. With the incredible rise of cryptocurrency, there have only been a handful of successful exchanges. and we are proud to showcase a South African-based cryptocurrency exchange, Valr. Valr is the most rewarding platform to buy and sell cryptocurrencies in South Africa, with over 50 million rand paid out in rewards to customers in 2 years. With Valr, you can choose to buy and sell over 55 different cryptocurrencies, the largest selection in South Africa. You can also refer your friends and family and earn unlimited commissions with Valr. And with investors singing their praises and Valr reporting that they'll expand into new territories, the crypto space for them sure is heating up. This is a really exciting company to come out of Africa and is a leader in the cryptocurrency ecosystem in Africa and abroad. And we'll be following their progress in the years to come. Of tonight's show. But first, a quick disclaimer that I've been advised to say. I am not an investment advisor. All these opinions are expressed on my own and of the guests. There are risks involved in placing any investment in securities or in Bitcoin or in cryptocurrencies or in anything, and none of the information presented today or really at any time, since you might be listening to this or watching it at another time, is intended to form the basis for any offer or recommendation or have any regard to the investment objectives of any person. That includes you, my dear listener. Everything you're going to hear is for informational, entertainment purposes only. And with that, let's get started. So tonight we're going to talk about the year of crypto and NFTs, and we'll be focusing on educating our community on why blockchain applications and crypto are currently taking off, seeing this massive adoption, and what can you do to get involved, and how do we get more Africans into this space? We need to develop a deep understanding of this technology as it is set to permeate every part of our lives, from finance to physical and digital ownership. Let's welcome our guests to the conversation. First up, we have Tanya Knowles. Tanya Knowles is a SingularityU South Africa faculty member. She has a focus on blockchain, cryptocurrencies, and RCOs, initial coin offerings. She is the chairperson of the South African Financial Markets Blockchain Consortium, which represents close to 50 of the country's largest financial institutions, as well as the South African ambassador of the Global Blockchain Business Council. She's the business manager of Adhara. Tanya, great to have you on the show with us.
Thanks, Mick. Thanks, great to be here.
And Tanya, I mean, you've been in this space for quite a while. How did you actually get into Bitcoin and blockchain?
Oh gosh, that's a long story I've told a few times, but essentially, you know, I'll wrap it up quickly, Mick. There was a headline in a US newspaper that said why you don't need a central securities depository, and that's the organization that I used to work for about 17 years, and it caught our attention at the time. And the story was about blockchain technology, and we sort of stopped everything as an organization and sat up. It was about 2015. And said, hang on a second, what is this whole thing about? And I was fortunate enough to be placed in a role where it became my job to explore crypto and blockchain. And I've never looked back, and now I'm full-time in the industry and love it. So that's my brief story about it.
And I mean, how have you seen it evolve over the last 6 years or so? I mean, it's been quite radical, the change.
Yeah, it has been radical. You know, we've seen different movements in different places. So I think from a corporate institutional perspective, we obviously all went through the hype in the 2015, 2016, 2017 cycle, where I think every second company, bank in South Africa, around the world, had some sort of blockchain innovation lab. And then we went through this trough where I think many of them shut them down, retrenched all their staff, got rid of them. And then we've really started to see a pickup again in the last few years, where I think a lot of people put their heads down. They developed some real meaningful stuff, and we're starting to see that take hold now with some real world use cases from a blockchain perspective. And then obviously from a crypto and Bitcoin perspective, we went through the RCO boom. I was and I still am a big fan of the RCO philosophy and what it stands for. And I love the idea of it, even though some of them have not quite panned out the way that they should have. And now we've seen, you know, there's literally, as you say, headlines every single day that keep you on your toes. If you ever talk about this subject, you literally have to make sure that you're up to date on a daily basis to know what you're saying. And with CBDCs and NFTs and everything happening in recent years, in the last year or so, I'd say that this has become very, very popular.
And I just want to touch on something you mentioned there, CBDCs. Do you want to explain that just very briefly? What is that? And that's quite an exciting space that you're currently involved in, right?
Yes. So central bank digital currencies, very exciting space at the moment. I think we have almost every central bank, every regulator from the Bank of International Settlement, or government sort of bodies, intergovernment bodies like the World Bank, the IMF, talking about this. I went through the tedious task of actually counting how many public papers and speeches have been said about this topic over the last 18 months, and I got to about 170. So 170
Wow.
papers have come out from central banks in this space, or speeches talking about the topic of CBDCs. So it's hugely topical right now. And I think people say like, wow, what's happened? We've been speaking about making currencies digital for years. And I like to think in a lot of ways, and I think people in the industry agree, that the announcement that came out by Facebook probably almost 2 years ago now in terms of the Libra project was really something that set a firecracker under the central banks and the regulators to say, guys, we need to, if we're serious about looking at digital currencies in some meaningful way, we actually need to start doing something, and with a real sense of urgency around it. Otherwise, these tech giants are going to come along and eat our lunch and disrupt us. So it's just really taken off. I always say don't underestimate the power of the regulator. I think that Facebook's plans have been put on hold in a lot of ways by the regulators pouring some water onto that fire. But it's really taken off in that space. I think that the other thing is there's the industry's definitely like split. There's a lot of groups looking at the wholesale payment space. So I'm very involved with a consortium of banks that created a legal entity called Finality International. And really what they're trying to do is make the five of the biggest currencies in the world interoperable with each other, using essentially blockchain tech. Very exciting project, and one to watch. And then the other one, there's a number of central banks making headlines, but the other big one is the one coming out of China, where they're looking at developing a retail CBDC and also making huge progress, piloting it, offering lotteries where you can download wallets and test it out, and you get some money into that wallet on your phone. And China's really making huge progress in this space. I think one of the really interesting parts about this thing is that, some people are arguing that the Chinese project in many ways, and I don't know if this will happen or not, it's all up for speculation, but right now, the dollar has been the reserve currency of the world for just under 100 years. And no currency has actually ever been the international reserve currency for more than 111 years. I think it's a Spanish currency that holds that record. But roughly the pound, the Dutch guilder, over the last few centuries, they've been the reserve currency for about an average of 100 years at a time. And people are saying that if China actually, gets this project together, is there a chance that the Chinese yuan will go and challenge the US dollar as a reserve currency? I have some reservations and some skepticism about it. I think that people might not necessarily use it in that way, but very, very interesting space to watch. So really what's happening is we've got this currency war going on. We've got the tech giants coming along. We've got the central bank saying, hang on a second, what are we doing about this? And then we've got the crypto world and the Bitcoin and Ethereum and all of the other lovers saying, we started this whole thing and we're going to, reign at the end of the day. So really hugely exciting space to be in it right now.
Awesome. And one thing I heard is that for the Olympics next year, you're only going to be allowed to use that Chinese currency. So they're getting ready for that. So you're going to have to download the wallet and get into that space. But we're going to come back to you in a moment. Let's welcome our next guest on, who's going to be joining us, Henri Arslanian. Just give me a second there. Have we lost Henri? I don't think we have Henri. Just give me a second. Don't have the... Just give us a sec. We're looking for Henri. Any second now. Just give us a sec. Let me do his introduction. I just need to get the. Yeah, there we go. And okay, let me welcome Henri. I think we got him back. So to welcome Henri Arslanian, who is the PwC Global Crypto Leader, the former chairman of the FinTech Association of Hong Kong, and the adjunct professor at the University of Hong Kong, where he teaches the first FinTech university course in Asia. Henri advises many of the world's leading crypto exchanges, investors, financial institutions, and tech firms on their FinTech and crypto initiatives, as well as numerous governments, regulators, and central banks on FinTech and crypto regulatory policy matters. With over 500,000 LinkedIn followers, Henri is a TEDx and global keynote speaker and a best-selling published author. Henri was named by LinkedIn as one of the global top voices in economy and finance, and is the host of the FinTech Capsules and Crypto Capsules social media series. I'd definitely say that you should subscribe to this. It's incredible to get your crypto news. Henri was recently named by Analytica as the #1 most influential individual on finance globally on LinkedIn out of 50,000 individuals working at the top professional services and management consulting firms in the world. He's also a consultant. He's the highest profile FinTech consultant in Hong Kong. Blockchain Asset Review named him the most influential crypto and blockchain leader in Asia. An Asian private banker awarded him the FinTech Changemaker of the Year. And his latest book, The Future of Finance, The Impact of FinTech, AI, and Crypto on Financial Services, has just been published and was ranked as Amazon's global top best sellers in financial services. Let's give a big round of applause for Henri. Henri, how are you doing?
Always good, and thanks for having me on. Very, very excited to be on.
It's so great to have you, and I love your energy on those crypto capsules and everything that you do. It's just incredible. Where do you get all this energy for crypto?
Well, it's crypto. Once you're in the rabbit hole, it gives this energy that propels you. So, it's. I think this is the most exciting time in the history of finance, most exciting time in the history of money. And I think all of us were so lucky to be able to be alive and experience this. I can tell you, our kids and grandchildren will ask us about the period we're going through right now and how it was. So I'm very excited to be here and sharing with you all today.
And I mean, do you think when our kids are grown up, do you think that there will be any sort of wallet or any type of financial environment without blockchain?
Well, definitely, I think the knowledge of actually now we talk about making a payment. Even now with all digital payments, we have to take the act of making a payment. I think the entire financial service transactions will happen behind the scenes. Go in the store, I'll take something and the payments will happen automatically. Buying a car, buying a house, the mortgage, all these transactions that we make will completely happen behind the scenes, especially when we talk about AI coming in, big data, IoT, and all the combination, and especially crypto. Because as we move to an era, to have micropayments, to have transactions that are settling with smart contracts automatically, you need blockchain technology for that. So I think it's crypto is a very important part of the future of money and, of course, the future of finance.
I think you've touched on something quite interesting there, is that it creates this frictionless environment that, with these smart contracts. How does that work exactly?
Well, yeah, actually, one of the benefits we have, let me give you a very simple and practical example. Today, if I want to get a loan, I have to go to my bank, apply, and actually be able to actually give collateral to be enabled, like from my house, a mortgage, in order to be able to borrow money that I can conduct other transactions. The benefit we have with smart contracts, when Bitcoin was invented in October 30th, 2008, in the white paper, there's obviously some functionalities in there, but really when Ethereum came up in 2013, one of the functionalities enabled was really the launch of smart contracts, which basically enables us for code to execute transactions automatically. So in a way, if you think about it, if A happens, then B happens, and we're able to actually code that, within these smart contracts for transactions to take place using, obviously, cryptocurrencies. And there's a lot of benefits from that. The latest way this is being used is what we call decentralized finance. So literally, for example, if I want to make a loan, I can deposit some of my cryptocurrency, be able to automatically get a loan out of these smart contracts that are taking place. In the same way, I can be able to trade I'm able to get insurance. I'm able to get asset management, really getting financial services without intermediaries in a way that is permissionless. And probably what is even more exciting is what we call composability, that I can take these different smart contracts and actually mix and match them and actually come up with my own solution that I want. In a way, think about the fintech world. Take two fintech applications that I like, be able to mix and match them together and come up with something that I want, because this is all open source. So really enables us to take a first principle approach to finance, to financial services, and that enables a lot of things from financial inclusion to, frankly, just better movement of money and financial services.
It's just incredible. It's such an exciting space. I mean, I was playing around with Aave, which is that's a decentralized finance app, right? And you deposit your money in Aave and it compounds the interest, and you can borrow, like exactly as you were saying, right?
Yeah, there's actually many solutions like these. I mean, not to mention any by name, but there's quite a few right now in the market. And what's been really, really interesting to make is actually when you look over the last couple of weeks and months, it's really been taken off. To put things in perspective, what we call the total value lock, which is kind of the assets that are in use in the DeFi world, was less than $5 billion 12 months ago. And now we're over $45 billion in total value lock. So really can show the growth that we have been seeing in the space. And, I think we're still far from having institutional investors come in, institutions experiment with it. It's still at the fringes of the crypto world to a certain extent. But really, I would say the promise that it made over the last couple of months, we've seen that decentralized finance works. It works at scale. And that actually opens up a whole new world of opportunities. So I think this is going to be very, very exciting. I mean, there's a lot of exciting things happening in crypto. Many of them that you mentioned in your presentation, from non-fungible tokens, institutional investors, central bank digital currencies. But DeFi, decentralized finance, is definitely one of the areas to keep an eye on.
And also, I mean, you at the moment, you're coming in from Dubai, right? But, how's the Asian market? The Asian market is quite developed in the crypto space. Who would you say are the leaders across the globe?
Well, absolutely. I think, normally I'm based in Hong Kong. I'm in Dubai now, in Armenia for some time. But what you've been seeing is definitely Asia. I think when you look at the global ecosystem of crypto, Asia is definitely where you need to keep an eye on for a couple of reasons. I mean, before Tanya was mentioning central bank digital currencies, I would personally argue now that some of the most advanced work we're seeing on CBDCs is happening in Asia. For example, when it comes to wholesale CBDC, which is between the central bank and the member banks, probably one of the most advanced projects right now, what's happening between Hong Kong, Thailand, and now actually China, and now actually the UAE. But really where the action is exactly what was discussed a couple of minutes ago with what's happening in China. China is without any doubt 4 to 5 years ahead of the rest of the world. I mean, just to put things in perspective, what was being mentioned really like a couple of minutes ago, with Tanya, was really that the PBOC, the Central Bank of China, has been researching this topic since 2014. And just to put things in perspective, we're talking about lottery. There's been over $2 billion RMB of transactions. That's $300 million of transactions that took place in over 12,000 use cases. So it's really a different scale right now, what's happening. The future of money right now is not being developed in Silicon Valley. It's not in London. It's not in New York. It's definitely in mainland China. And there's a lot of catalysts, including the Olympics, but also other policy developments from trying to combat corruption, money laundering, the black economy, something very important in Africa as well, and actually broader financial inclusion, which are policy priorities for the Chinese government, and that is actually catalyzing a lot of the elements. And of course, this would have not happened as quickly without COVID. COVID, without any doubt, again, when our kids and our grandchildren look into this in a couple of years, acted as a catalyst when it comes to the future, and a catalyst as a development of the money and finance.
And also just another point that you touched on there about money laundering. I think a big myth about crypto is that it's hard to track the money. But I heard a talk from around that they actually caught the Silk Road guys through tracing the money on the blockchain. Do you want to comment on that a bit?
100%. I always tell somebody, if you want to buy drugs, you want to do something illegal, use good old cash. It's still the best way. It's not traceable. Absolutely. If you want to commit anything illegal, you should not be using Bitcoin. You will get caught. And actually, I think one of the biggest misconceptions today is that actually criminals are using Bitcoin as their transactions. I mean, to put things in perspective, according to the latest data, less than 0.34% of total crypto transactions are linked to illicit transactions. In absolute terms, it's about $10 billion. To put things in context, according to the World Bank today, the volume of money being laundered by traditional financial ecosystem is anywhere between 5 to 7% of global GDP. That's 800 billion to $2 trillion. So really, again, when you compare it, actually the amount of illicit activity taking place on Bitcoin and cryptocurrency is actually minimal. And I think that's going to be even furthermore when we move to an era of CBDCs. That actually, I believe, will really give us, for the first time, a fighting chance against money laundering, because we're able to see transactions. It'll be quite public from a central bank perspective. Yes, that raises a lot of questions on a privacy perspective, for example. I think we'll have a debate as a society of how much we're happy to sacrifice on a privacy element if it's actually means some potential benefits on a collective side or actually for the broader community. So definitely, I think the argument that people say it's used by criminals, that was a case in 2011, 12, in the early days of Bitcoin, but I think this is not the case anymore when it comes to the global crypto ecosystem we were seeing today.
Thanks for clarifying that, and super interesting. We're going to come back to that in a bit with the panel. Let's welcome on our third guest, Farzam Ehsani. Farzam is the CEO and co-founder of Valr.com, the company you saw a bit earlier in our African Innovation Spotlight, which is a leading South African Bitcoin and crypto trading platform. He was previously the blockchain lead at Rand Merchant Bank and the First Rand Group, and was the inaugural chairperson of the South African Financial Blockchain Consortium. He previously worked at McKinsey & Company in Johannesburg, Deloitte Consulting in San Francisco, the Baha World Center in Haifa, and the United Nations in Nairobi. He studied economics at the University of California, Berkeley. Farzam, great to have you on the show.
Pleasure to be here. Thanks for having me, Nick. I'm actually in the dark here. We've got load shedding, so hopefully you can see me. I've got a lamp right here, but it's great to be with you.
Thanks for making it work, even in load shedding. That's the agility mindset we all need to have in South Africa. And Farzam, it's been absolutely incredible what you guys have done in just such a short space of time. What was your motivation? Why did you want to start Valr? What was behind this? Creating this exchange out of Africa, when there were already some, people, leaders in place. What motivated you?
I think it was a bigger story about looking at finance. I think it starts in probably 2011 when the debt financial crisis, the Greek crisis was happening. And I realized that all the financial headlines and even news headlines around the world were about derivatives coming out of the global financial crisis. And I realized that very few people actually understand this world of finance, and it affects every single person in the world, whether they understand its effects or not. And then looking into it deeper, I joined a bank into the belly of the beast and try to understand what this world is about. And you realize more and more, being in the ecosystem, how archaic our financial systems are, our social structures in society as well. And by saying that, what I mean is, today, we don't talk about the concept of a
I think you're on mute, Mick.
Yeah.
The most famous line. They should be
I think your mute button was load shedding as well.
Yeah. Sorry about that. There we go. Farzam's back.
Now I'm on my phone, so I'm with you. But we lost juice.
Okay, so Farzam, you got cut off there. Do you want to continue? We'll come back to the panel in a moment.
Sure. So what I was talking is just the traditional financial system. Hopefully you can see me here, yeah. And the fact that there are so many frictions, and also it's not just our financial system. We have a tendency to look at things in silos in the world. We look at political systems, monetary systems, governance systems separately. But these are all interrelated. And so when you look at our structure in the world of the nation state, the nation state is a concept that's been in existence for about 400 years. Before that, we had these tribes, city-states, and then finally the nation state. And right now, when you look at the nation state itself is being tested. The issue of identity is being tested. And money is very much related to this issue and this concept of identity. So money, so far as we know it, for the most part, is associated with the nation state. We have the South African form, the rand, the American form, etc., the Japanese form. There are a few places where we have obviously the regional form, like the euro and some West African countries. But for the most part, we have so much friction in our current financial system. And so when we look at the evolution of money, and we've always evolved our concept of money as a human race, and Tanya alluded to this, we're at this stage where actually our monetary systems are failing us. I was talking about the concept of a cross-border email before I got cut off, and that is a ludicrous concept, the cross-border email. What are you talking about? Whereas the cross-border payments industry is a multi-billion-dollar industry. So when you think about that, and we kind of accept the fact that when we send money using our traditional financial system to London, New York, Beijing, wherever it is, and it takes 2, 3, 4, 5 days, and we accept it, that is a very archaic system. So we started Valr.com to really allow people to bridge themselves from the old financial system into this new world of cryptocurrencies. We've really enjoyed a lot of growth. We've been trading about over R1 billion a week now. So volumes have ticked up. We're in the hundreds of thousands of customers now. And so there's a great deal of demand out there as well for people, various use cases such as remittances, where the old financial system is just not doing the trick.
Awesome. I think it's
awesome. I think it's so exciting.
And I mean, you guys are leading the way. I mean, a lot of you've got so many currencies on your platform as well. That must have been a challenge getting that, accepted. Or how did you actually achieve getting such a wide variety of crypto on your exchange?
Yeah, it was a very difficult thing because actually there were only a couple of platforms when we started, and really I think in total there were probably about 15 crypto assets that people in South Africa had direct access to. So we started Valr, and we immediately brought 50 crypto assets into the market. It took a lot of partnerships, liquidity providers, etc., to bring the liquidity that was required. And so we're actually planning on bringing more. So this is just the very, very beginning. But I think the thing to note, though, about that, and a lot of people ask us why we have so many, is I think we're still kind of at the beginning of this Cambrian explosion of innovation that's happening with blockchain technologies and cryptocurrencies, etc. Bitcoin right now is in the lead. It's the one crypto asset that accounts for over 60% of the total market cap, as they call it, of over 1.5 trillion US dollars now that all cryptocurrencies are worth. Itself, Bitcoin is over $1 trillion, but it's still early, and we don't know exactly where this ecosystem is going to go. We don't know exactly which crypto assets will succeed and which will fail. But what is clear is that we're still in a very early stage. And if you look back at the internet as well, before the dot-com boom and bust, you saw also this explosion of ideas that were coming to fruition. But a lot of those died. Some of the main ones stayed and are now some of the largest companies in the world right now. And I think we're going to be seeing a similar thing in the crypto asset space, where the market will decide, people will decide, the population will decide. And so our philosophy is we'll bring you Bitcoin and Ethereum and XRP and all of the top 10, but we also want people to be able to have access and the market to decide through research what crypto assets they deem fit for their use cases.
Thanks for that. That's I think it's so interesting and a perfect segue into our panel. Let's welcome our other guest back now, and let's start off by asking. Tan, just based on what Farzam was saying, and then over to you, Henri. Like, what is exciting you in the crypto space? He spoke about Bitcoin being the leader. What are some of the other new coins coming out that are sort of shooting up and exciting in terms of their technology? And just a quick fire explanation of what crypto is. We're not going to go into the basics of crypto and blockchain, but just a quick fire, what you think it is. Your explanation.
Henri, you can give your top tips on what coins.
Well, I think most of the coins actually. I think it's. Go ahead, Tanya. Go ahead.
No, I'm sorry, Henry. I'm teasing Mick saying I'm glad he had the disclaimer about that this is not financial advice. So
it's just purely for information, just to, what's coming out that's exciting, that's new tech, that has promise of, changing, just like Farzam was saying around identity. And, from something I saw was this ENS, this Ethereum name service system that's come out where you can actually buy a URL on the Ethereum blockchain, which I think is amazing, because then that URL is linked to your wallet, to your ID, which is in perpetuity. So it's just as long as you hold it. But it's just an incredible new way of buying a domain name for a website. So Tan, let's start off with you.
Okay, sure. Yeah, sure, Mick. So I think there's a lot of exciting things happening. I mentioned briefly in my intro that I got very caught up in the initial coin offering phase, and I mean I loved it. I just love everything that it stood for in terms of giving access to entrepreneurs to start their own businesses. This idea that your users were your owners, and and I loved it. And now we've seen that this next sort of craze in terms of the non-fungible tokens is also really, really starting to take off. And I try and, say to myself, don't get overexcited right now. Let's first see where the space is going, because it is like very overhyped at the moment. As you mentioned in your intro, we've seen pieces of digital art selling for close to $70 million US. But at the same time, I look at it and I think, well, actually, it is an exciting space. For the first time, we're seeing that people who are normally collecting physical goods now it's waking up and saying, actually, maybe digital goods have a lot of value to have. You often speak at the Singularity events around the concepts of virtual reality, artificial intelligence, AI, all those things. I think that we're moving very much from this physical to this digital space. And people are beginning to appreciate that digital assets have some sort of value. It could be, some sort of loot in a war game that you're playing on that your 16-year-old son is playing on the internet. It could be a digital piece of art. It could be somebody uploading some music that they want people to listen to. So I think that there is a lot of value where, for the first time, we've seen this move from the physical to the digital, and the value associated with that. That we haven't seen before. So for me, it's exciting, but I'm keeping my enthusiasm in check this time. So that's my feedback on that space.
Awesome. Well, let's go. Yeah. So let's move over to Henri. Let's maybe rephrase the question a little bit. What would you say? Why would you say 2021 is the year of crypto? We've named the title of this show tonight that. What in your mind? Why are we seeing so much adoption now? And why could this be the year of crypto?
Absolutely. It's a great question. Actually, I would say there's two main elements that are making 2021 absolutely record year. So far, I mean, the first 3 months of this year have been absolutely record year in crypto's history in every pretty much single metrics. I think there's two big drivers on it. One of them is actually, it sounds very boring, completely opposite of Singularity University, but it's the entry of institutional players. Right. So again, if you think about it, really the entry of institutional players really makes it easier now for a lot of the big capital to come in the sector. And for crypto to move from 1.2 to 2.0, you need these institutional players to come in. Even stuff, I'll give you an example, very simple. Regulatory clarity. Again, just putting my lawyer hat on. Regulations are not sexy, they're boring. But actually now, I would say pretty much in most countries in the world now, you have at least some kind of regulatory framework when it comes to cryptocurrencies. The other thing that you were seeing right now is a lot of these entry of institutional players, boring stuff like crypto custody, which is actually, ironically, is kind of opposite of actually self-custody and actually the whole principle of decentralization, but now makes it easy for large asset capital owners to actually put, for a lot of these asset managers, as you guys know, they're not allowed to hold client assets. So by law, they need an independent third-party custodian. And I would say the third is a lot of products. We're very close right now. 2 years ago, if somebody wanted to invest in, products that are easy accessible, which brings the retail products, for example, Farzam was just talking before about some of the exchange offerings right now. I would say it's never been easier for average person to get into the crypto space. The user experience, user interface, a lot of these crypto exchanges, even in the large technology platforms, the PayPals, the Squares, and the likes, have made it way easier for people to enter the space. And I think this whole movement of institutional players, along with the retail interest, have really changed the game. I can just give an idea of the numbers. The last data point we have, which is Q3 2020, there was about 100 million people with an account at a crypto exchange. This is data from Cambridge University. For sure, we're higher than that right now after the first quarter of the year. But again, to put things in perspective, in 2016, there were only 5 million people with an account at a crypto exchange. So it went from 5 to 100 in 5 years, and now we're going to go way higher than this in a matter of months. So very, very exciting year, and that's, I think, one of the reasons, 2 reasons why 2021 is looking like the year of crypto so far.
I think that it definitely is easier now than when I first tried to download the wallet and actually get it. It was quite difficult. Now you can go to Valr or any one of the international exchanges, and it has become a lot simpler. But Farzam, I wanted to ask you just around scaling, and there's a lot of talk around as this becomes more mainstream and more people are using crypto. What are some of the challenges around scaling the different coins and the different platforms? And maybe we can also touch on a bit of the gas fees and what is a gas fee and how that works in the Ethereum blockchain.
Sure. So scaling really refers to the concept of how do we scale the ability for many more transactions on a blockchain and thereby bring in more participants into blockchain transactions. Right now, for the most part, most transactions are actually done on what's called on-chain. That means you think about Bitcoin or Ethereum as the settlement layer, and effectively every single node or every single participant, node is like another word for a computer or one of the participants that helps process the transactions on the blockchain. Every single node right now needs to process every single transaction on the blockchain. So globally, you have on the one side a fantastic thing where you have tens of thousands of disaster recovery sites, whereas in the traditional banking system you might have a few, less than 10, or at a large institution. But on the flip side, it becomes very difficult because every single transaction needs to achieve consensus amongst tens of thousands of nodes, and that's quite an expensive process. It's quite a laborious process, and in many ways, it's an inefficient process. And so right now, to give you a little bit of a kind of anecdotal concept of the Bitcoin blockchain, is if you asked everybody to stop using the Bitcoin blockchain and only allow the people in Venezuela who recently had issues with their currency to only them to use the Bitcoin blockchain, every adult Venezuelan would only be able to submit one financial transaction every 2 months on the blockchain, on the Bitcoin blockchain. So that gives you an idea of the difficulties on the base layer. However, there are many innovations that are happening on what are called layer 2 protocols, where things are being abstracted from the settlement layer of the blockchain, and I don't mean to get too technical here, but then settled on the blockchain itself. And what I mean by that, and if you think, and if any of the audience is familiar with our traditional banking system right now, we have a system where the central bank has a settlement system, but not all our transactions go through that settlement system. Many transactions happen between on a particular bank on its own ledger, and there are several other things that are being kind of explored in the world of blockchain technology to solve this problem. So I think while that's a challenge, I think to put one's money against it would be a grave mistake. I had a friend in 1992 who tried to send an email. He said it took him 26 minutes to send the email. We're not talking about writing the email, but what we now do with a click took him 26 minutes to do. So we are in that phase, and there are many things that are in the works to actually help with that scaling issue.
Yeah, it's, I think as the evolution of all this tech is, happening, we're finding new solutions to some of these problems. I mean, those gas fees can really freak you out if you're making a transaction in Ethereum. Sometimes the gas fee is more than the transaction. Henri, what's on that?
Oh, no, absolutely. I think Farzam is absolutely correct, right? From a gas fee perspective, and I mean, the cost of sending a transaction right now on Bitcoin and most of their networks now are extremely high. I would even say if you want to brings back to the argument, if you want to buy your coffee with Bitcoin or Ethereum, it doesn't make sense anymore just because the transaction fees are so high. But again, there's many solutions now coming up in the market on this, right? And from some of the layer 2 and other solutions that we're seeing. The one thing that I mentioned, though, I think there's actually horses for courses as well. I think it's one thing often when we talk about gas fees, I think it's important to consider. In the same way that I would not go buy coffee with a bar of gold, you should not be making small payments with Bitcoin, right? But in the same way, however, there's other cryptocurrencies that are made for payments and kind of more smaller transactions that happen, very similar to actually if we would make digital payments today. So I think that's one comparison. I think a lot of people would kind of complain and say, gas fees are too high. If you want to send a Bitcoin transaction, it's this and that. But I think you have to look at really what is the use and what is the purpose of how it's being used. Let's say Bitcoin is being used more and more as a store of value, as a hedge against potential inflation, and so on and so forth. And there's many more cryptocurrencies that are more focused on payments. I mean, one thing often maybe for the benefit of your audience today, depending how you slice and dice it, but there's about 8,000 cryptocurrencies out there. Bitcoin is one of them. Yes, it is 60-70% of the market, but again, there's many others that have different uses. In the same way that when we in other technology development, there's different tools are different for different things. I think that's why we have to put that in context.
Fantastic, thanks. And I think let's go to some of the questions. There are some questions coming through. First question for Tanya from Beer Time. Let's see what he's asking. It looks like the NFT bubble will pop. If or when it does, what elements will be left behind? In other words, what positive elements are here to stay? This NFT space is, as you said, it's familiar to the ICO time a few years ago. What are your thoughts around this?
Yeah, Mick, so I think, there is a lot of value to say that we probably are in a bubble right now. I think one of the core things is that we're moving to this concept, and I did allude to it previously in my answer, but we're moving to this concept of things digitally having value. And obviously that started with Bitcoin. So I think that some of the things that will be left over, and we've seen it, maybe in the NFT phase, maybe in this idea of programmable money and the smart contracts and things that we can do, is we've been left with an asset that we can actually store on the blockchain. It's secure. It's got that traceability. You can find out who owned it before. We've got the provenance going through the system. And people highlight every type of use case from the piece of art to somebody using it for houses and things like that. I think a lot of these industries are more complex than we anticipate. So people say, let's put our title deeds for houses on a blockchain, or let's create an NFT for every single house, and then we'll know who owns it, and it will give access to young people to own a house now because it's so much simpler and easier. I don't think it's necessarily that straightforward, but I think what will be left behind here is this concept that a digital asset can have value. And for me, that is something that will be meaningful. I think we'll go through a bit of a dip now. We'll go through all the learnings and everything that we've gone through with the ICO phase. But long term, I think that the key thing is we're going to start to see the value of a digital object in a new way that we've never ever seen before.
I know. For me also. I think it's such an exciting space, and if you think about as a parent, and I've recently become a parent. Before you would think, what would my kids do when you grow up? It's probably one of the biggest questions you have as a parent. What do you want your kids to be successful? And you would normally say to them, go into legal or law or finance. Now in the future, you're going to say, I want you to be an artist. Go into being a creator, because there is this new opportunity out there. Because if you create something that has value for a very long time, you can get royalties from that, and you can actually feed the generations to come. And does Henri, do you want to comment on that? And then let's go to Farzam.
Things are really driving this, right? One of them is pure retail adoption. Just to put things in perspective, January 1, we're talking in that 10 weeks ago, there was about 10,000 weekly users of NFT on NFT platforms. Now we hit over 400,000. Actually, by the way, the majority of that, the volume is actually happening on NBA Top Shot. So again, the idea of collectibles. As a kid, I grew up in Canada. We used to collect hockey cards. or stamps. I used to collect stamps as a kid. I was a geek. I was a nerd. And now actually you're having this whole digital NFT world that's coming up. Even volumes, by the way, we went from less than $5 million in volume to over $200 million until a couple of 2-3 weeks ago. So I think it's becoming very interesting. The big change I think it's making is that if you are a content creator, and you have a community, it really empowers you. I mean, I'm a very good example. As you mentioned before, I have 500,000 followers on LinkedIn. The way I can monetize that, I can have sponsors maybe cover some of my costs. But actually, what if I'm able to actually build a link with my community, be able to have a way. And right now, if you put your videos on YouTube, YouTube obviously makes a big cut of it with advertisements. Same thing with artists and Spotify. And I think if you're an individual now, you're able to create, you're able to build a community around your ecosystem, really NFTs. And, it's linked to another kind of trend in the crypto world called social tokens or community tokens, which is kind of like tokens are issued by individuals or personalities. There's a lot of similarities with NFTs. I really think opens up a lot of weird possibilities. And I would say the real benefits of NFTs and social tokens in us whole creator community, I think we're just starting yet. We probably don't even know how this may develop. In the same way, when we had the internet, when Farzam's friend was sending an email for 26 minutes, we didn't know we'll have these live sessions, So I think there's a real that opens up a lot of doors of a lot of opportunities. Again, when you're combining to the whole gamut of areas that Singularity University covers very well, from AI to big data, the whole technological revolution and so on and so forth. So again, it makes it very, very exciting.
I know, and also for me, I'm a big gamer, and I've been trying some of these games that are in NFT games. I bought a character last night in a game that actually cost real money, and I'm growing him and breeding him, and hopefully going to sell him, in a week or two, or maybe a month. Who knows?
Why not?
Yeah, exactly. And and it's so interesting to think about like some of the things that have happened in this space. You've got these crypto kitties, these cyberpunks, these hash marks, as you said, the NBA. Farzam, how's this affecting you in terms of exchanges, or how does it all sort of tie in together?
Yeah, so it's very interesting. So we, as an exchange right now, and I say right now because things are evolving all the time, we deal mostly with what are called fungible tokens. So, one Bitcoin equals one Bitcoin, and one other cryptocurrency equals one other cryptocurrency. And you can build an order for these things, as the traditional financial system also does. But what's interesting about NFTs is that they're meant to be unique. So you can't build an order book of unique different things. It doesn't work like that. So we're looking into this, and I think the thing to keep in mind right now is that, this sounds insane, right? That something digital that can be copy and pasted, and you can have the exact identical replica. I can have it, you can have it, everybody can have it. The only difference here is that we know who the owner is, right? When I first started thinking about this, I thought, this is insane. Why are people paying these types of money? But as you start thinking about it more, you can start looking at different possibilities and new permutations that will start surfacing. And so the idea, for example, of we've been historically, the last couple of decades in a society where there was a lot of downloading illegal music and movies and things like that. And then we moved into this society where, we have streaming, and where it's actually legal now, and you're actually paying the artists as well, and it's digital as well. It's not on a CD or a cassette, etc. And so in this world now, we can start imagining concepts where artists can not only sell their unique creations, but we can, as a society, know who the owner of that particular creation is. And if we wish to make a contribution or a royalty or whatever it may be, we can do so easily. Now, yes, we can still get access to the underlying piece of art, but I think a lot of people want to do the right thing. A lot of people want to support artists, as an example, and so they can do this. So I think, it's sometimes helpful to look back at history. And if you told someone a couple of 100 years ago that 95% of the money of humanity will be in ones and zeros on servers that you cannot see, they would think you're absolutely insane. And that's the reality of the world right now. 95% of our money is not physical notes and coins. These are concepts of our imagination, of our social agreement that we agree upon who has wealth and who doesn't. It's social consensus. And the idea of social consensus is slowly.
I think it's such a poignant point. around, Yuval Noah Harari talks about this, how we've invented this concept of money in his book, Sapiens. So, and it's really about this social currency, almost like what Henri was saying, is that for the first time, you're going to know who owned the object before you. And that also that's going to mean something to you. If a celebrity owns something that you now own, it gives you the social currency to talk about it, which is such an interesting topic. Henri, I just want to ask you around the NFTs. If you have a physical painting, can you NFT it, and how does that work?
Yeah, good question. It's and I mean technically,
especially
it's the same way.
Let me just add to that. If you're not the artist yourself, so you have a physical painting from a famous artist, can you NFT it, and how does that work?
Yeah, I mean, technically nothing stopped. I mean, we can NFT this picture, a screenshot of this presentation if we want to, right? And we can put it on any of these marketplaces, and maybe I'm sure there's great buyers who believe there's value in this, right? So I think that is actually possible. We can do it. The one thing, obviously, then becomes obviously the traceability and the kind of the provenance that we can prove with these NFTs. I think which makes it very different, And many people would say, but you can just copy paste it in the same way. I can go buy a postcard of the Mona Lisa, but it's not the real Mona Lisa, right? I think that's why I think there's a lot of credit, and actually the fact that we're able to prove it now actually gives a lot of benefits. I think what's been interesting the last couple of weeks, and frankly, it's not even months, weeks, is I think people have realized how easy it is to actually create NFTs with the various platforms that are available in the market right now. And I think this is going to give rise to not only this new rise of new potential artists or actually kind of potential asset class that people are able to hold, but also I think what Farzam touches is very, very important. This kind of that I can prove, this is kind of my boosting effort that I can show to everybody that I was the one that you own this NFT that maybe Farzam bought afterwards, that Tanya got afterwards, but I was the first guy who got it. And I think that's we often forget in this whole the human element. What I love about NFTs actually not only it solves very practical problems like provenance, authenticity, and so on and so forth, but it kind of also plays to the human psychology element as well, which I think is very interesting, which also I think is something we don't talk a lot about in the crypto ecosystem that has been, by the way, in the art ecosystem, the art dealers and so on. So that kind of bragging cocktail party element that happened before in person, now it comes to the digital world. I think that's very, very, very interesting.
Thanks for that. So we are running out of time, and there's quite a lot of questions coming through. Robin O'Brien, I hope that answered your question that Henri just spoke about, how it's unique. Let's move to another one of Richard O'Brien's questions, which is around, Tanya, if you want to answer this, there's a lot of concern around energy consumption of cryptocurrency mining. Is this a major concern? I actually had a friend of mine in New York say, he's an artist, he's actually not getting into it because he's worried about the energy consumption. How does this compare to financial systems?
Yeah, look, I think we've all got our views on it. I think a lot of the mining that's taking place particularly on the Bitcoin blockchain, it does use a lot of energy right now. And a lot of that is happening out of China at the moment. So, and I think the Chinese government is even clamping down on some of those miners who are consuming so much power. The other side of the story is to say, well, Farzam spoke about how we can scale these things with level 2 and things like that over time, it probably will start using less energy. And then there's the counter argument to say, well, how much energy does the gold mining industry use to mine gold, for example? Or how much energy are banks using to maintain their server rooms and their business continuity processes and all of that? So it's quite a complex topic right now, but I think that over time these costs will come down. And I think we're already starting to see that in a lot of ways with sort of new forms of energy coming out. So yeah, that's very briefly, Mick, my summary of it.
Thanks. And Farzam, Henri, do you want to comment on that?
Yeah,
sure.
I'd like to just
this is a topic that comes up quite a lot. Go ahead, Farzam.
Okay. Now, what I was going to say is that I think this is a concept that's sorely misunderstood. And is there a lot of energy that's consumed? Absolutely. And I think one needs to go and understand what proof of work is, because when there are nuances to this, because someone the person who asked the question talked about proof of stake. Stake means, okay, if you have X amount of value and you stake it, this is another consensus mechanism. But that assumes that there is stake that's already distributed. Whereas the proof of work says we need to prove that someone has done the work to actually earn the rights to new Bitcoin or the transaction fees on the Bitcoin network. But if you play this forward, what's really beautiful about this is that it actually incentivizes the lowest cost energy in the world, regardless of location, to actually monetize what's available in the Bitcoin network. So it actually pushes us to renewables that are becoming much more. It actually, because there is no physical infrastructure that's needed, you can start developing new ecosystems in areas of the world where there are new sources and low-cost sources of energy that we could never tap for. But now we can tap that low-cost energy via mining Bitcoin, for example, and then we can create industry around low-cost energies as well, ecosystems around that. Traditionally, we've not been able to do that because of transportation costs, accessibility costs, because whatever you produced with that energy needed to be sent somewhere. So this is a real paradigm shift in our thinking. And actually, it's the opposite, in my opinion, where actually Bitcoin will push forward a more green financial system.
It's driving innovation. Henri, what are your thoughts on this?
Quickly, I mean, it's a big topic, right? I think often in the crypto community, we don't acknowledge this enough. I mean, just to get some data, right? Today, the one Bitcoin transaction consumes as much electricity as the average US household does for 24 days. And as we all know, the total network, Bitcoin network, consumes more or less, depending how you slice and dice it, between the Ukraine and Argentina, the electricity consumption perspective. That being said, I think Farzam touched a very good point, right? Because we call it the blockchain trilemma, right? So you cannot have decentralization, scalability, and security at the same time. There's a lot of, I think the picture is actually more objective, right? So today, about between 60 to 70% of the electricity used for Bitcoin mining is coming from renewables. In many cases, as mining is happening next to dams, for example. That's what happens in China, in Sichuan province, or happens in Quebec, or happens in Scandinavia, which is often electricity that would be lost. And often the Bitcoin network, because it operates 24/7, can consume a lot of electricity that will otherwise go, wasted, because at night there's reduced levels and so on and so forth. I think the way I look at it is a bit compared to the first Ford Model T. If you think about the first engine that Henry Ford came up with, it was big, it was heavy, it was not that fast, and it made a lot of noise. And now we have Tesla. The beauty in the crypto world is we moved from the big Model T engine to the Tesla pretty rapidly, and as we saw in the question with proof of stake. So I think there's a lot of progress is being made already on that front. And I'm quite optimistic, but I think the reality is we have to acknowledge this. And I think we have to work together to try to solve some of these issues that are coming up with the environment. Because, the last thing you want as a crypto ecosystem is that some institutional capital does not come in, or pension funds, or even rather public does not get involved and does not does not discover the benefits of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies and decentralization more broadly because of this kind of some of the conceptions, whether they're true or they're misconceptions on the electricity consumption of Bitcoin and other cryptocurrencies.
So interesting. And Robin O'Brien says hydroelectric dams in China. That's what we need. I think hydrogen energy is going to be something really, really interesting to watch in the near future. We're going to answer one more question, and then we're going to go into our closing question. Let's give this to Tanya. Tanya, technically, how is the NFT to the asset itself? Is the asset stored on a chain?
Oh, Mick, sorry, I lost your sound there for a sec.
So Robin O'Brien is asking, how is the NFT representation on a blockchain linked to the asset itself? Is the asset stored on the chain or a hash, or is it directly linked?
Oh, sorry, Mick, I've lost you. I don't know if the others can hear.
Can you guys hear me? Am I going off? We're having a few technical challenges tonight. Can you guys hear me? So Robin O'Brien was asking about the NFT representation on a blockchain. Basically, you need to get a wallet, and when you buy the NFT, can you guys hear me? Not if you can hear me.
Now we can.
Okay, can you hear me now? So just answering Robin O'Brien's question about how to use the NFT representation on a blockchain, you need to get a wallet, Robin. When you're on your wallet, you can actually purchase an NFT and it goes into your wallet and it's stored on the Ethereum Etherscan. Is that right, guys?
Scan is just a blockchain explorer, but effectively on the Ethereum blockchain, there is a particular, it's what is called an ERC 721. It's a particular, what is it, like a format, so to speak, where you can issue non-fungible tokens into that as a format, effectively. And so there needs to always be an issuance of an NFT onto the blockchain. Once that's issued as a token, then that token can be transferred across to different people on the blockchain through what you were just talking about, through a wallet. And ultimately that comes down to private keys and public private key cryptography. But effectively there always has to be an issuance. And maybe on this point, you asked about, issuing physical assets or physical paintings as an NFT. Banksy, most people know the artist Banksy. He recently actually, they burnt a real physical painting of his. They took a picture of it, obviously, and a high quality picture. Then they burnt the physical, and then they issued it as a digital NFT. And that sold, I think, for about close to $500,000 recently. So anything is really possible in this space. But what that also means is that we are quite early in the hype cycle. So beware.
Thanks. Yeah, I think the key thing is to get educated and actually to really make sure that you're careful in this space, because as you said, be careful. And that's a great segue. Just to close out as a final comment from each of you. If you could please let us know, what advice can you give crypto or blockchain enthusiasts? A lot of people are watching. How do they get into it? What platforms should they explore? Let's start with Tanya. We'll go to Farzam and we can end with you, Henri.
Sure, Mick. My view right now is just get into it. I've been nagging Farzam actually for quite a while. If we can't have a debit order of our bank accounts, if we can just buy a little bit of crypto every single month automatically. Because I really think that, to get some cost averaging over the price, I wish I'd been doing this for the last 5 years or so. And I really think if you do have a portion of your wealth to spare in any sort of way every month, we really just in the beginning phases of this, and it's really, really worth exploring in more depth. Obviously, do your research as to what you put in the money in, but right now I'd say just tick over month by month, and it's really going to get there one day. So I'm a true believer in the long term. We're going to have lots of ups, lots of downs. I'm sure that after the NFT craze, we're going to have another craze after that. Don't get caught up in the hype, but keep your head down and just look at the fundamentals around what crypto actually has to offer, because I really think that it is set to reinvent money, as we've spoken about today, and now's the chance to really be invested in it.
Thanks for that. Farzam, what are your thoughts?
Yeah, as Tanya said, I think it's important to get into this space, even a little bit. Don't if you don't understand it, then be careful, and everybody should be careful. But I always say, put a little bit into this space that will make you pay attention, but not so much that will hurt you if you lose it. But the reason that I encourage you to do that is that it will start making you think not about crypto, but about our current financial system. So as a little example, right, we are used to paying, in the financial services world, bonds, coupon payments on a quarterly or a biannual or an annual basis, or even our salaries. We're used to paying on a monthly basis, or in some countries twice per month. So one of the things that we're thinking about at Valr is, why is that the case? Why can't we? Someone's just worked a full day. Why do they have to wait to the end of the month to get paid? So why can't we stream payments so that actually people can get value as they're working? So these are concepts. When you think about streaming payments, this is actually not just some made up concept. People are working on this, right? So if you talked about streaming music a long time ago, people would have been, what are you talking about? So think about streaming payments and start questioning why we're doing things in our current financial system the way we are. Do they make sense? And how can we improve them? I think that's the benefit of entering into this space. It will make you question assumptions about everything in the financial services sector.
Thanks for that. That's a great
Thanks for that. That's
live streaming payments. That's quite an out there concept. It's radical but realistic. So, that I think that sounds really interesting. About not just live streaming video, but actually live streaming as you do the work in real time. Really, really interesting. Let's move over to Henri. Henri, what are your thoughts?
No, this is a question I get a lot from advice. I took a 3-step process. One of them, just get educated about it. You don't need to read the Satoshi white paper. It's a bit too technical. Thankfully now on YouTube and other platforms, there's a lot of information that's available. Even if you want on my YouTube page, you can find a lot of educational videos on what is Bitcoin, how Bitcoin works, and so on and so forth. What is Bitcoin mining? So it's very easy on that perspective. Second thing, it's exactly what Farzam said. I encourage everybody to just put a bit of amount, experiment. Go into great platforms like Valr, who can actually show you how it works. What I did personally, my mom never understood what I do for a living. A couple of years ago, I gave her a fraction of a Bitcoin, and now she's really into it. And actually, as a tradition, what I've done over the last couple of years could be a good tip for many of you for birthdays, baptisms, from bar mitzvahs to graduation presents, wedding presents. I give a little bit of Bitcoin. Not only it's actually potentially a very valuable gift, but also it makes a good topic of conversation as well, which I find also gets everybody more educated about the topic as well from that perspective. So I think these 2 steps, I think are a very good way to get into it and kind of learn about it. And space, I give
I think we've just lost you.
Oh, shame.
Henri, are you there? He's frozen on a smile at least. That's great. There we go. Are you back? I think we've lost him. So thank you to our amazing panel of guests. We are so grateful that you all could join us today. Thank you for sharing your insights and views on the future of crypto and blockchain and NFTs. Thank you to our amazing audience, all the comments, Farhana, Trevor, Robin O'Brien. Thank you, Ariel, Ruben, Richard. Thanks for all your comments. Don't go anywhere. Our giveaways are up next. So tonight we're going to be giving away 3 Ultra Experience tickets to the SingularityU South Africa Summit Online 2021, which will be a hybrid event. These online tickets are valued at 10,000 Rand per ticket, which includes the 4 days of access to the SUSA Summit online platform, as well as unique experiences during the summit. All right, let's draw our winners. Tamsin, please can you spin the randomizer? And the winners are Liesel Barenser, Craig Green, hey Craig, and Kelly Swanby. Well done, you guys have all won Ultra Experience ticket to the SUSA Summit Online 2021. And next we're going to go to some book recommendations. At the end of each show, we're going to be sharing a few of our top reads on the subject of the show, so that you can continue the learning and even get more knowledgeable on the subject. It's better for us when some of these books come from our local and global Singularity faculty. So the books we want to recommend is Bitcoin Pizza, The No Bullshit Guide to Blockchain book by Samantha Radushi. And the second book we want to recommend is The Little Bitcoin Book, which has various authors, but also written by Alex Gladstein, one of our faculty from San Francisco. That's all we have time for, folks. This is the start of a new season of shows of Exponential Africa Live. Next month, we're going to be going to focus on the future of music concerts in gaming and virtual reality. And we have a fantastic lineup of thought leaders to share with you for this show. So make sure to look out on our website for more information. Thanks to all of you for watching. Like and subscribe to our YouTube channel or register on the website. I'm Mann. Let's future-proof Africa together and keep smiling.